What is going on, guys? It has been a super long time since I've done any videos, so this is super exciting for me. Basically, the house is now at a point I'm now allowed to do the barn, which is a huge deal. I was always waiting to get to it. Main thing here is that when we bought this place, had this pre-existing thing, but it's in pretty rough shape, and the more and more I looked at it, the more it just, I don't know if it made sense, or I could just justify it more to just completely start over. So this is going to be getting tore down, not anytime soon, maybe next year, but I basically want to get the new pole barn up and hopefully built before spring. I don't know if that's too ambitious. I am going to be doing it almost entirely by myself, and maybe, you know, some help here or there, but no like huge contractor coming in to build the barn or anything like that. Ideally, this is going to save me about 50%, which if you look into what one of these costs, I was getting quotes between say 110 and like 150,000 for 48 by 80. So it's a pretty huge savings. It's a lot of work, obviously. I don't even really know. Just like the house, I had no idea what I was getting into. It was more work than I thought it was going to be. I'm sure the barn is going to be the same, but at least we get to start fresh. So I've got the whole layout and everything done with the strings net. So I didn't film any of that because the weather was super crappy, but me and my brother, we got it all lined up and everything is perfectly square. I'm just gonna go over there, we'll take a look at it and just kind of talk about what's going on. I'm pumped though. Now it's super hard to see because you really can't see the other side, but this is 48 feet this way and then 80 feet that way. Now that is like massive, especially compared to my last shop, I guess, the garage at the old house was only 32 by 22, so like 700 square feet. This is, I think, close to 4,000, like 3,800, but I'm not going to be insulating and finishing even concrete or anything, the whole thing. My idea is I'm just going to put up like a temporary but kind of permanent wall in the middle, so I have two 48 by 40 bays basically. So then this one is going to be my workshop where I do all, like everything, like all these, you know, my future builds and stuff for the videos and all that. It's going to be right in this area here. And then that's going to have concrete. The other side will just be a gravel floor, and that's going to be storage for, I don't know, stuff like this, stuff like that, stuff like that. Talk about that in a minute. But also my trailer, the, I don't know, toy hauler, whatever you want to call it. But that's another reason why I went 48 deep, because that trailer is about 37 feet long with the tongue, and I want to be able to back it in and then also be able to get cars in and out as well. So I don't know how well it's going to work, but I tried to lay it out with the doors. It's going to be 12 by 12 doors, so 12 wide, 12 high. And now it doesn't really look like it at this point, obviously, because there's really nothing here but some batter boards and some string lines. But just getting to this point was actually a pretty huge deal. You have to go through a lot of different things for permits and drawings, engineer, stuff like that. And yeah, the main issue or concern now is not 100% sure what's under the ground here. I know back 20 years ago, the yard went out further into the field, and there was also a couple little barns and grain bins, stuff like that out there. So I'm hoping we're not gonna run into anything. Buddy's coming tomorrow to drill these holes out. They're gonna be a 24-inch hole, so he's bringing a 24-inch auger, and then on the sides of the doors, it's actually gotta be 30-inch because that's the load-bearing side. So it's gotta carry the weight of all those trusses on top of the door, down both sides and into the ground. So 30-inch on those, 24 on the rest, which is like pretty huge. And then it's gonna be 6x6 posts. So the main thing, I don't know, I've never done this before, but I've done a lot of research, a lot of YouTube watching. And the main thing is, I guess, getting the layout perfectly square. I've gone like a couple days basically, just going back and forth, cross measurements, like a diagonal. It's perfectly square at this point. So now what we're gonna do is take this string down, take all these strings down. Buddy's gonna come drill the holes, and then we will have to get it inspected. They have to make sure the holes are 4 foot deep. And then at that point, then we call in the concrete truck. They're gonna pour a 12-inch footer at the bottom of each of these holes. And then at that point is when we get all of our lumber and then start standing posts up and setting the posts and all that. And then that's when this string, which is very important with these batter boards, all this has to stay here perfectly exact as it is. And then once the holes are here, we'll basically be able to put the posts in the hole and then stand it up to this and that, and then level the whole 18-foot post. So it's gonna be a huge process. Like I said, it's 80 feet long. So I think there's 32 posts going for this whole building. It is not cheap, but it's a lot cheaper doing it this way than hiring someone. And also at the end of the day, I'm not super concerned with it being done in a month. Whereas like if you hired a company, they would have a whole crew that would come out here and they would basically have it built. Somebody built an even bigger one. It was like 10,000 square feet, like a massive building. And they had it up in like 3 weeks basically. And then they put concrete in like 2 weeks later. So That's not gonna be the case here. This is gonna be a very long process. And I don't know if I'm ready for that, but I basically have no choice. This is all I can afford. So I'm just, I keep saying it, but I'm so pumped for this. This is what dreams are made of right here. I'm so ready for this. So that is basically the building. It's going to be 48 by 80, and also it's going to be 14-foot ceiling. I know some guys will say that you should go 16, and you can have like a mezzanine or a loft kind of up top, which I think you can still do with 14. I've seen it with 14, but I'm not super into that. Like it's cool, but I don't think I'm going to be doing that with mine. Just the way that it's laid out, I'm going to have a whole half of the building for storage. I don't really need a whole loft, whatever, and my house is literally right there. So if I want to hang out, I'll just go in the house. I don't really need to hang out in the garage. It's gonna be 14 foot high. That'll be plenty of room for 4 posts, which is my main thing, which is I want some 4 posts, but also there will be enough room if I get a 2 post, which down the road, who knows, I might. My thought was if it's 16 feet high, there's a lot more area you have to heat in the winter, and then also cool in the summer. So I think it'd be more efficient this way, and I don't see the need for all that extra material for 2 more feet, but I could be wrong. Who knows? I have no idea what I'm doing. I'm just throwing it together and we'll see what happens basically. Now, if you remember in the video that I made, it's probably like the last video I barely post, but this building here was going to be my shop. This side is like 30 by 40, which is not bad. And it also has 14-foot ceiling. So that's pretty much 1/2 of my shop is going to be a little bit bigger than this. But this thing is kind of ridiculous. It's built out of like telephone poles. It's kind of hard to see, but it's all telephone poles and nothing real structural about it. This whole entire wall here is just built off of an old like barn door or something, and then they've basically cut a hole in it and shoved that telephone pole through there. So pretty much if I wanted to use this in any capacity whatsoever, I would have to be rebuilding this entire wall, so supporting all of this while I knock this down, build something else here. Obviously need a wall on the outside because it's open, so I'll be rebuilding 2 entire walls, have to dig out, pour cement, which is probably going to be 15 grand even for this much. So that's pretty huge cost alone. And then you're also still just stuck with telephone poles, and that's not a beam, that is also a telephone pole on its side. So the more and more I look at this, yeah, it would be cool. It would save a ton of money, which would be ideal because I don't have a lot of it. But just the more and more I look at it and have looked at it, it just doesn't really make sense to put any money into this, especially the amount that because I'd probably have to put 20-30 grand with concrete and insulation and all that stuff, which I'm obviously like, I'm gonna have to do it here. I'm not saving that. But instead of putting it into this and then having, you know, a crappy add-on to this thing that's falling down. This side is brutal. This side is like 10 years old. This side is like 50 million years old. I don't really know, but this side is newer. There's really no point in my mind to invest a bunch of time and money into this when I can spend more, probably double, but I'll have something completely like brand new and pretty much exactly what I want. So that is the case there. And then, like I said, this will be torn down, and my idea is all of this steel is fairly new, like it's in pretty good shape. So once I get this barn completely built and done and like outside steeled, it's gonna be new steel, so it looks nice. On the inside, once I do the insulation and all the electrical stuff like that, my plan is to basically start taking this all apart, and then I'm going to try and save as much of this steel as possible and use that for my ceiling in the new build and possibly the walls as well. I'm not really sure how that would go, but that would at least save me a ton of money, because if I'm going to put drywall in there, or if I'm going to put steel, so a lot of people do that now, put steel on the ceiling at least, that's a lot of money because that's still a lot of square footage for the whole entire ceiling of the building. So at least that way it could save me some money. Another reason for building a new building is I really want to push it as far back as possible, just kind of get it out of the way, but like, so it's not like cutting off part of the property, basically like this building is, because there's an entire, I feel like, front side yard thing, which is just like a septic system. So it's like one of the big hump things. It will be a lot nicer when this is a building, and then this is nothing, just grass, and it'll basically continue all the way to the road, which is about 150 feet or something like that. Once the build is done, this is down. I want to plant like a row of cedars basically along the field and then up the front. And then this will be just a big, huge grass yard. Obviously, these bins will be going as well, because I'm probably not going to need them once I have all the storage in this building. So yeah, there's a lot of reasons. I don't know if it's actually makes sense or if it's just me justifying why I want to do this, but it is what it is. And this is what we're going to do. Also, you might have seen, we got this sky jack. This is mine. I bought it. It's so crazy to own a piece of equipment for no reason, but there's actually a really good reason. Obviously you need one of these. Like, you're building up 14 feet and 80 feet long, so you basically, the construction is kind of similar to what this is, with all these girts going across. So by the time you're up there, like, you're up there quite a ways. And then also when you have to put your trusses on, you're all the way up at the 14 feet, and it's pretty sketchy. So looking into renting one of these 4x4 like off-road ones, these things are like $2,000 plus tax plus delivery to rent for 1 month. And then you're really rushing to like get things done, get things moving, and it's going to be going into like November, December, so weather's not going to be great, and I know that. So there's going to be times when you can't even really do anything. It's just going to be sitting. You're kind of paying for rental for no reason because you can't even use the unit. I paid, I would say, maybe half or like 2/3. I got a really good deal of what one of these is actually worth, because it is in rougher shape. It runs super good. Everything works, even the outriggers, which is pretty cool because it's a smaller unit, but it has outriggers. So that's going to really come in handy because the property's, it's pretty sloped actually on the back side of the building. In my mind, it makes sense because this is mine. And then when I'm done with it in say 6 months, 9 months, a year, I don't know, I can sell it, get probably exactly what I paid for it back. And I didn't waste any money on renting one. And then, you know, just that money's gone. So at least this way I have it. I might just keep it by the end of this. I'm not really sure. I would like to do a lot of the electrical in the building myself too. So like up through the trusses, put the ceiling up, do all the lights and everything. So I don't know. It just makes sense. Like, that's going to really come in handy. Yeah, it's not like the cleanest unit ever, obviously. Like, it's a little rusty, a little painty, bird crappy. But it like fires right up. Everything works on it. Outriggers work. I don't know. There's not really much else to it, but it goes up and down. It drives, it turns, it does everything that it needs to do. Got the little outriggers. Let's see if this works. Why is it not working? Oh, that's why. Huh. That's why. There we go. Takes up like most of the area back here, but I'm perfectly fine with that because there's still all that over there. Okay, you can see there's gonna be the 12-foot door there, and then also 12-foot door right there. It doesn't really look like it, but we're at a good height here. See that? Even the new part, I keep saying new, but like it's not that new. Even the 20-year-old part, like it's got like a 6-inch sag in the middle. And then this is just a disaster. There's really no point in saving any of this. I wasn't planning on saving this ever. So that's another reason too. I put a bunch of money into this. Who's to say if this isn't gonna just blow down? And then it's also attached to my brand new shop. So I don't know, would it pull that down too? I have no idea. So I think it's just better off just go new. Man, I'm so excited for this. In order to drill the holes, obviously we have to remove this string. Once the holes are done, inspected, concrete is poured. Concrete is poured and set and whatever, get my lumber. Then we'll put the strings back up. And then when you put the post in the hole, basically you're going to line it up so it's touching this at the bottom, and then put like a 6-foot level or a post level or whatever. Make sure the whole thing is level off of this line. So this is essentially going to be the outer dimensions of the building, minus 1.5 inches on each wall for the 2x4 girts on the outside. So it's a little bit tricky because it's not exactly 48 by 80, but when it's all done, the building will be 48 by 80. Yeah, anyways, I'm just gonna take a string down and we'll get these holes drilled, hopefully. Fingers crossed that nothing goes wrong, because like I said, there could be old foundations, rocks, you know, big stuff. So hopefully none of that happens. We get this drilled smoothly and we don't have to dig all this up. That's another reason why you can see how unlevel this area is. Like that's like 1.5 feet up. This one's literally dug into the ground, which I will raise the grade up. I just didn't really realize. I started doing everything else. Then I got over here and I was like, okay, obviously this is a high point. I just made it a little bit too low. But yeah, so this is obviously going to need to be leveled. With pole barns, it doesn't really matter. You just use a laser, make your holes and all that stuff, and then level it later with gravel. Or you could do it before, but I didn't want someone to come in here, level this, have to pay a bunch of money for material time, and then ends up we like hit a whole bunch of junk underneath, and then I have to dig it all out anyway. So I didn't want to have to go through all that, and just in case. So we'll see what happens. Hopefully it goes smooth, but there's really no saying. Anyways, get the string out and then pick it up in the morning. So down there, he's doing 30-inch now, because on the outside of both of these doors, it's gonna be 6x8, and it needs a 30-inch pad to sit on, where all the rest of these around the perimeter are just 24s. Everything is going pretty good. A couple of them had some concrete in them, but we were able to kind of chip away at them and break them up so far. I'm gonna have to go around after and clean out the bottom of all these because they want it like undisturbed, clean soil. So, but that's no big deal. This is so cool though. I have to buy one of these now. Buddy just left. His name is Zach. Really nice dude. Came from Chatham, which is like about a 40-minute drive from here. But he did exactly what I wanted. Like everything was laid out. He came in, drilled the holes. I didn't really film much of it because I was using a laser. I don't really know much about this stuff, but it's like a grading stake. And basically you set it to like your high point, and then you have a stick that you then put down in the hole, and it catches the laser beam that's like spinning on a tripod. And then that's how you know that you're actually 4 foot down from your high spot. So everything should be good for the inspection, because they're going to probably do the same thing, make sure your grade's set. I'm a little bit concerned with that because I didn't put a lot of time into figuring out the actual grade. Everything went well except for this hole. You can see there's something right there. I don't know if it's an old foundation or something. And in this one, right over here too, I ended up being able to break it up, but you can see like tons of chunks of concrete everywhere, big pieces, lots of rocks. The first one we dug here, we hit like all of these rocks immediately, and I was like, you've got to be kidding me. I thought it was going to be a super long day because of that, like first hole, and we hit rocks immediately. But once we got the rocks out of that one, went to this one, no problem. This one, like I said, was an issue because the concrete was in there, but then everything else was like boom, boom, boom. All of these holes, all 32 of them. See, it's kind of hard to tell, but nice straight line, obviously. And now, so these ones aren't as deep as the other ones, but it's because of the grade, right? So once the building is built and then we grade the inside, they'll actually be 4 foot in the ground like they should be. I'm super happy, dude. Everything went surprisingly well. He got here at 9 a.m. and now I think it's like 12. So a couple of hours and everything was done. I was actually super nervous because the older gentleman I bought the house from, he's a farmer and he's owned this property. Actually, his parents, like his dad, owned the property when he was like a little kid. And he said that there was some barns and stuff out here, and he couldn't remember if they got the foundations like dug out and then filled them back in, or if they just kind of went over and buried them. So he actually suggested that I don't put it over here. And yeah, I didn't want to not put it here. This is the only area that I really wanted it. He wanted me to put it back over there because apparently there's nothing there. But then I lose my whole loop, which I love, because when I'm going to be pulling in with the trailer and stuff, I can just loop it around, go back up over there, and then back it right in this building, instead of having to back it in down the road. Because if the building was 50 feet out there, that whole loop would be basically gone. So this is what I wanted, and thankfully it worked out. So now next steps of this are going to be, I gotta call the township. They have to come and inspect the holes. Hopefully that goes well. I really don't know what they're inspecting, like the depth obviously and the size of the hole, I guess, but hopefully everything is good with them, and then we can go ahead and get the approval and then get a concrete truck in here, pour a foot in each of these holes, and then that's the foundation that you then stand the poles up on and basically start building the actual shell of the building. So it's pretty exciting. This is just, it's wild to me, but I think I can get the lift out, and I think I'm just gonna put it up in the air and stare at it for a while. Man, look at that, dude. That is sick. That's so cool to see. So it's about a week later now. Township did come, they inspected it, approved it right away, no issues. They basically just said everything looks good, but you have to remove some of the loose debris in the bottom, which I knew. I did that throughout the week, which was super boring. Basically just emptying out the bottom of the hole, because when you're using the auger and you're basically pulling it out, there's a little bit of dirt falling back inside, so just have to grab that stuff out of there so it's nice and undisturbed at the bottom. That way when you pour your cement and then you put your post on and all the weights on it, it doesn't want to settle and compact that dirt. So you just have to get rid of that loose layer to begin with, and then you shouldn't really have any huge settling issues. Got that done, and now, like I said, it's exactly a week later. It's Saturday, and we just got all the concrete done. I didn't film anything because I was working so hard. I was working constantly. The guy showed up like 11:15, and then he left pretty much at 12 o'clock. So we were like a little over an hour, but the dude was super cool, and you know, explained to me how to use the machine and all that. And yeah, I had no time to film because I was just telling him, you know, when to stop, to start, whatever. I was pouring the cement in the hole, leveling it out somewhat, making sure it's the proper depth, which is 12 inches. So we started here because he backed the truck up in here, did all of these holes, and then he went out. And then we started way down at that end, came all the way back to here. But then the super unfortunate part, which I never really thought about, I was worried about him backing in here and these, you can't see them, but they're covered. Worried about these holes caving in because the truck is like quite heavy and it's like shaking and stuff because it's spinning and all that. So I don't want to cave the holes in. I never even thought about it. But he's like, do you own that field? I don't own that field, but I know the guy who does. I could have called him and asked if we could drive the cement truck out there, because he said he's done that before, the truck driver, and he'd have no problem doing that. But I didn't have time to really ask him. He was here and we couldn't do anything. So basically what he did was park out here, and we had to wheelbarrow all of those holes at the back and then all the way up the side. Luckily we got like halfway through, and then he moved to the other door opening, got that side done, and then once we got on the other side, he pretty much moved all the way over to the field over there as far as he can, and then we wheelbarrowed on the other side of those holes. That was a ton of work, definitely like the most labor intensive part that I've had to do so far. But anyways, here's the concrete. Like I said, it's down in there. Pretty much made sure it had the right depth. I just tamped it down to kind of level it off with a steel rake. And yeah, I'm not gonna uncover all these, but they're all done. 12 inches all the way around. When we did the hole drilling, we used a laser to make sure that the depth was pretty good. I wasn't super technical with it, so if it was within like an inch or a half inch or whatever like that, I was just like, good, move on to the next one. So my whole thing is the holes should be at the proper depth, give or take a few inches even. Then I pretty much marked a spot on the shovel where a foot was, and then I would just stick the shovel in. Once it got to that point, I was like, good, go to the next one. So all the holes really should be very similar, but the true test will be once we stand the 18-foot posts up, 4-foot hole, 1 foot of concrete. So that's basically 3 feet in. So that leaves us with 17 feet in the ground and on top, because we need a 14-foot ceiling. So it should be cutting 1 foot off the top of all of them. So I have basically 12 inches to play with, give or take. So hopefully everything is close enough and it's gonna work out. Not much of a visual update, but like I said, concrete's done. We're gonna wait for this to dry, and I'm gonna order my lumber next week, and hopefully next weekend it's decent. Like this weather, this is pretty awesome. And then hopefully we can start standing some posts up, which is gonna be pretty insane. So moving pretty quick, but I think it's gonna take a lot longer from this point on. So we'll see. So I'm just gonna end that video right here. We got pretty good progress done, and now next video should be a lot of like actual progress where you can see we're getting lumber dropped off, and then should be able to basically start standing posts up, which is super exciting. I'm so pumped for that. So hopefully the weather stays decent enough for us to be outdoors working and stuff like that. I know it's getting into the winter months and terrible time to do this, but hope you guys enjoyed it, and I'll see you in the next one.